What's up everyone, Brett here and welcome back to the channel. Due to popular demand after asking the question on my Instagram account, here is how much it costs to have a baby, specifically in Singapore, and why my wife and I decided to leave the UK and come to Singapore to give birth to our little baby girl. I'm going to share with you all of the expenses involved in having a baby and giving birth and pregnancy. I'm going to share with you exactly why we decided to move from the UK to Singapore to give birth here. Even though if we'd stayed in the UK and given birth under the NHS, it would have been completely free. And here in Singapore, we paid $7,000. I'm going to share that all with you right now. Now, neither Singapore nor the UK rank anywhere near the top when searching for the best countries to give birth. And through researching and preparing this video, I actually found out that there's a thing called birth tourism. And birth tourism is when you leave the country that you're residing in to go somewhere else just to give birth in that country. And people do this for a number of reasons, including to get citizenship in that country, to get access to schools, as well as to get access to their public healthcare possibly. Now, none of those reasons are actually why we decided to come to Singapore. We're not here for birth tourism or anything like that. Even if we'd stayed in the UK, our daughter would have been able to get Singapore citizenship because my wife is a Singaporean. So that's definitely nothing to do with why we've come here, but it's an interesting thing that I didn't know existed and it's pretty cool. And anyway, just quickly, let's check out these two countries which are the most popular places to go to give birth as a tourist. Number one is Canada. Canada, because it's an English-speaking country and their passport allows you to travel visa-free to over 180 countries. And also, if you're born in Canada, you get access to their public healthcare. Pretty cool, and also very similar to the UK as well. Number two on the list is Chile, and apparently Chile hold the 6th best passport in the world. Comparing that to the US passport is ranked 26th. And one of the main reasons why birth tourism is so popular in Chile is because if you give birth to a son or a daughter in Chile, you can actually apply for residency yourself. So you and your spouse can apply to live in Chile with your new son or your new daughter. All right, so we first found out that we were pregnant whilst moving house back in March, I believe. We found a pregnancy test, my wife decided to take it, and yeah, it was positive. Anyway, so this was back in March, and at the time we didn't give much, or we didn't give any thought at all as to actually where we wanted to give birth. We didn't think that it was a big decision, and it wasn't something that came to the forefront of our mind at the time. Although it is actually quite important, and there's quite a lot to think about when considering where to give birth, especially if you have more than one option, or there's more than one place that would make sense for you to give birth. So for many people who don't live in the UK, and I know there are other countries that have similar benefits to the UK like Canada, but for those who don't, having a baby is very expensive. Albeit your taxes might be lower to counteract the welfare state, but yeah, basically having a baby can be very, very expensive. And that's why those who follow me on Instagram, follow my wife and I on a couple's account on Instagram, Travel Though, go check it out. They've been asking and they wondered why we decided to leave the UK where we could have had a baby for free to come to Singapore and pay $7,000 to do so. Also guys, if you're not already, please subscribe to the channel, give this video a like. I share all sorts of personal finance and investing tips on this channel. This is just a one-off because we've recently given birth and people on my Instagram account have been asking for this video. But yeah, usually I share investing and personal finance videos. So make sure you're subscribed for more. Okay, so there were actually a couple of main reasons why we decided to come to Singapore to give birth rather than staying in the UK. The main reason is because of the COVID situation in the UK. As we all know, the coronavirus situation in the UK is really, really bad, compared to in Singapore, where it's actually really, really well managed and under control. In the UK, there are over 1.7 million cases, compared to in Singapore, where there are 58,000 cases. And if we then take a look at the death toll per million people, to keep it fair, in the UK, you're looking at 942 deaths per million people, whereas in Singapore, you're looking at just 5. And guys, if you can hear the baby crying in the background, I apologize. She's only 2 weeks old, she's crying for a feed, and my wife is dealing with her right now. But yeah, hopefully we'll keep that under control so we can continue with the video. The other reasons then why we decided to come to Singapore to give birth are one, Evie's family, Evie's mum especially lives here, so she got to spend more time with her mum in the build up to actually delivering, during the delivery, well not during the delivery because it was just me and her, but after the delivery, which I think is a really important time for someone who's just given birth to be with that special person, be with their parents. So that was reason number two. And then reason number three, I suppose, is just the weather. Just to get out of the winter in the UK and enjoy some Singapore sun. All right, now moving on to the good stuff. How much having a baby has actually cost us. So yeah, as I said before, because we were in the UK when we found out that Evie was pregnant, we decided to obviously do a lot of the prenatal stuff there. Under the NHS, so that's obviously not costing us anything up front for most of the prenatal stuff. The only thing that we did pay for in the UK was a private NIPT scan, and this was called the Harmony test. We paid £500 for this test, and it's something that, yeah, we'd definitely do again. It's something that checks for conditions including Down syndrome, Edwards syndrome, and Patou's syndrome as well. And this is something that is very accurately tested for at 10 weeks pregnant. So when Evie was 10 weeks, that's when we went in for this private scan. Private scan was meant to cost $500, but because when we first went in, we were a little bit early, they couldn't get the results that they were looking for, and we had to go back. They wanted to charge us an extra £200 or £250 for that test. And trust me, I was having none of that. I'm not about that. We managed to get away with paying any extra. We paid £500 for the test. That's the first cost incurred during our pregnancy journey. Skipping all the boring stuff in between then, the next cost that we incurred was for an ultrasound scan, and that was done in Singapore, and that cost $200, Singapore dollars. What was also really cool about being here in Singapore during that time is that my wife's mum is actually a GP. She has her own clinic here in Singapore, and she has an ultrasound machine. We were able to use that ultrasound machine to go and check out our little one as regularly as we wanted, really, although not actually testing or looking for anything specifically, but just using the ultrasound machine and having a look at little one inside, looking at her feet and things like that. It was pretty cool. At this point, we returned back to England, and we had done all of the major pre-delivery milestone checks. So from this point up until 36 weeks, we incurred no more costs. And then at 34 weeks, we flew back to Singapore for the all-important delivery. 34 weeks was about as late as we could fly. I think certain airlines do allow you to fly up to 36 weeks, but even at 34 weeks, like how we flew, we needed a midwife's or a doctor's letter to say that you're fit to fly and then confirm your estimated delivery date, just to make sure that the airlines don't take on any of that extra risk. And then when we got back to Singapore, we had to serve 14 days house arrest. We had a tag on our ankle to make sure that we didn't leave the house because of the coronavirus situation. And during this time, we were basically just praying that our little one didn't make an appearance, because if she did, we would have had to have left the house to go to the hospital. And here in Singapore, breaking the rules is not something that you really want to do. If we'd been caught, we'd have been fined $10,000 and potentially imprisonment, which obviously not something we wanted to do. All right, so when we'd finished serving our 14-day stay-at-home notice, our quarantine, that's when the costs really started to stack up. At 36 weeks and then at 38 weeks, we went for 2 more ultrasound scans. These were $200 each, so in total $400. And then the big one arrived. Well, the little one arrived with the big bill. At 39 weeks and 6 days, Evie's contractions started getting really bad, and that's when we headed into the hospital. Fast forward then, 36 hours after arriving at the hospital, we were being discharged with our little princess. And this is the point where we were presented with the main bill for the delivery. And the bill was $5,516. And prior to actually going into labour, when we were at the hospital for one of our previous scans that I mentioned we paid $200 for, they actually gave us an estimate of how much the actual delivery at the hospital phase would actually cost. And these estimates were between $4,100 and $4,800 for a complex case. Therefore, I'm not sure how ours amounted to $5,500, but it is what it is. And of that $5,500, the bulk of the cost was $535 for the overnight stay in the hospital, $2,500 for the actual delivery service, as they put it on the bill, and then $1,700 for the treatment services. And I don't really know exactly how those costs are broken down, because they seem to overlap, if you ask me, but when asked, I was not given any further explanation. And in any other circumstance, I would have insisted, but in this case, I didn't, because the Singapore government offer a very generous baby bonus scheme for any babies born as a Singaporean. You have to have Singapore citizenship within Singapore. And this baby bonus scheme should actually pay all of the costs that we incurred during our whole pregnancy journey, and some as well, to take care of other costs further down the line. This scheme that the Singapore government have implemented pays $8,000 over a period of 18 months, with deposits at set dates during those 18 months. And currently, because of the coronavirus pandemic, the government have actually applied a further $3,000 deposit as well to help parents during the coronavirus pandemic. So with the extra $3,000 one-off payment, that brings the total of 8 plus 3 to $11,000 as a grant given by the Singapore government as a baby bonus, which is pretty cool. And therefore, you can see that's why I didn't argue too much or ask for too much more information about our hospital bill. Now, this is only something that the Singapore government do to support their own. And we were only eligible because my wife is Singaporean, and therefore our daughter will be eligible to be a Singapore citizen as well. So for this reason, Singapore is very unlikely to feature as a birth destination for anyone looking to travel to give birth. Because if you were to come here and not give birth to a Singaporean, you'd still have to pay, you get none of the benefits. But still, that's a pretty good deal for Singaporeans, you've got to admit. And it actually costs the government here $4 billion every year. And the reason behind this government initiative here in Singapore is that Singapore's crude birth rate, which is the ratio of live births per 1,000 people in the population, has been declining for years. So the government is giving its people incentives to get making more babies. As well as the cash grants that get deposited into the parents' bank account, Upon registering the birth of a Singaporean here in Singapore, you actually automatically get enrolled into a CDA, a Child Development Account. And this is an account that gets set up automatically when you register a birth for a Singaporean. And the government deposits $3,000 into this account. And this $3,000 can be used for all medical expenses and healthcare related expenses in the future. As well, I believe at certain clinics and things like that, you can buy stuff like formula, which can be pretty expensive. So the information that I've shared with you here is based on my experiences. And obviously things change all the time. The coronavirus $3,000 extra grant is obviously only valid now. It's valid for any babies, I think, born within the next 2 years. So that obviously at the end of 2 years may get extended, may not. Things change, and I just want to let you know that obviously this is just based on my experience. Also, we gave birth in a public hospital. If you were to give birth in a private hospital, of which there are tons here in Singapore, that would obviously increase the price quite dramatically, I would imagine anyway. So to summarize, the main reasons that we came to Singapore to give birth are, well, the main one was because of the health situation, the coronavirus situation in the UK, which was terrible. And secondly, for my wife to be with her mum. The financial situation, which I've shared with you in this video, was obviously a bonus. But actually, when you take into account the flights, coming to Singapore, going back with a baby, it roughly works out at about evens. The government help you pay for certain things. And for us anyway, that's helped cover flights and things like that. And we're basically broke even. So we haven't actually gained anything financially by being here in Singapore. And that wasn't the reason, but obviously it's nice and it's very helpful. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like, hit the subscribe button as well. Give the video a share if you think that you might know anyone who this will be helpful to. And yeah, see you next time.